Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Whole Home Show. I'm Tony Joe, your host here every week. And if you're listening to this program, you are curious about real estate related stuff, getting maybe tips about home improvement, or wanting to learn more about the market and what's going on out there. Well, you're at the right place. Happy to be here and your host, as I have been for several years and many episodes now. Our show, of course, comes to you every week with the support of our show partners. Denise Webster, mortgage broker with Dominion Lending Center's Modern Mortgage Group. JP Sellers, insurance advisor at Westland Insurance. The Sitka Law Group for your real estate, wills and estates, corporate and personal injury needs. And Silhouette Home Inspections with Pierre Beauvais. If you need help or direction in your real estate transaction, even if you're not thinking of buying or selling right now, if you need some direction about what to do around the home, if you need some help with a will, or if you want an inspection to see the condition of your home, or want to refinance, or maybe want to check on your home insurance, get a quote, call any of our team members. They would love to hear from you. You can find their contact information on our page on the CFAX1070.com website. Look under shows. There you'll find us, The Whole Home Show with me, Tony Joe. We would all love to hear from you. It's been my pleasure being your host here every week. I've been selling real estate here in Greater Victoria for 30 years now. I've handled hundreds of transactions in our fair city. And I also do a fair amount of outside work, staying in touch with a lot of my colleagues across the country. So it's always really interesting knowing how we're doing here in Victoria relative to the rest of Canada. Be happy to chat with you. If you're curious about the market or what's going on, just give me a call. Again, you can find my contact information and the rest of the team on our webpage, or call me direct. Just Google Tony Joe Real Estate. You should be able to find me. You know, your home is your greatest, your largest asset, likely. And they always say your home is your castle. There's a lot of things to know about your home, and maintenance is one of them. You want to make sure that you're keeping it in great condition. Today, we're talking to a couple of people that can help you out in this area. First, we'll be chatting with Phil Aitken from West Coast Waterproofing, talking about maybe sealing some moisture that you might have in your basement or crawl space. Very interesting conversation that we're going to have. Thanks for coming back. You're listening to The Whole Home Show, and I'm Tony Joe. We are having conversations today about things around your house. Obviously, it's a real estate program, and we talk about not only when people are buying or selling real estate, but also when it's time to do stuff around your house. And my guest right now is Phil Aitken with West Coast Waterproofing. Phil, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and of course, you're on the road. You're a busy person, off on calls. And this is the neat thing about how we're doing it nowadays is we're recording. You can be in your truck as you are and having a chance to chat with us here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just taking a little break to talk to you. I'll be working on for a couple more hours this evening, unfortunately, but that's just the nature of the thing this day. So
absolutely. Okay, so let's tell our listeners about West Coast Waterproofing. So what is it that you guys do?
Okay, so we basically are, we use a lot of different products and, membranes and things like that, pre-applied and post-applied to prevent the ingress of water into your home. So if it's new construction, we can sort of apply membranes prior to your slab being placed that will prevent water coming up through your slab at a later date. Once your foundation walls are poured, we can apply membranes to the outside of your walls before it's backfilled against to prevent the ingress of water also. Mm-hmm. We see it all the time where people have leaks and stuff in their basements where the perimeter drains have backed up and, people excavate down to fix the drains. And really all they have is just a concrete wall there. And it's obviously concrete cracks over time. And then, water gets in the wintertime, it freezes, it expands, the cracks get bigger. It starts to degrade the rebar within the wall. It's just detrimental to the structure, period. Mm-hmm. So it's always prudent to do, a full waterproofing system if you have a, below grade basement and it's a living space. I mean, why wouldn't you? But unfortunately, it's something that a lot of people choose not to do. They don't think anything's ever going to happen to them. Mm-hmm. But I think last year in Canada, there was something like $1.9 billion in insurance claims for water damage alone and for residential. And people, some of the listeners might just want to review their insurance policies just on a side note, because I think things may have changed, but I know for a fact in the past, insurance companies were only covering homeowners for things like backing up sewers. They weren't covering for severe weather problems. And I know I spoke with several homeowners last January when we had that particularly bad rainfall.
Yeah, actually, Phil, January 31. You know how I know? My basement flooded that day. Yes. Yes.
But
although it was a storm drain backup, it wasn't a crack. So, anyways, sorry. Yeah, I know January last year. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was probably maybe half of the people I spoke to said their basements had never leaked before, but this time it had, and they'd lived in their home for years and years. And we've got changing climate. This time of year going forward, it's going to be wet and it's going to get worse, from what I gather. So, but we don't just do pre and membranes and things. If you have an active leak in your home, there's a system that we employ, which we call concrete injection, and we simply drill into the crack. We insert a port, we tie onto the port, and we inject. It's a chemical that we mix with. It's a resin and a catalyst. And when the two are mixed together, it starts off a reaction. And when they come into contact with the water within the crack, the product immediately reacts. It swells up and it chases the water. It's hydrophilic. So it essentially goes after the water, and because it's being injected at high pressure, it will chase the water into the tiniest little nooks and crannies of each crack, and it will prevent the water from coming in any further. Wow. So it's quite a neat little system. So.
Well, I mean, this interests me very much because, of course, not everyone lives in a new home, and construction processes have changed over the years. There's so many 1950s, 1960s vintage homes in Greater Victoria, and this is an area that people are concerned with. When they're looking either at buying a home or if they're looking at their own basement, they start wondering about the efflorescence and all the other stuff that are signs of some sort of moisture that is coming into the home, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely see it a lot. And, like I say, I don't think I've been in the construction industry now for 35 years, and I don't think I've come across a concrete wall that doesn't have a crack in it. Concrete cracks, that's all there is to it. I mean, over time, settlement, concrete's going to crack. So,
and this is another thing, because you started the conversation off talking about when there's water and with temperature changes and it cracks. Of course, concrete is a porous material, and sometimes we get people when they're doing a building, they're buying a property and they do a building inspection, and they get very concerned about a hairline crack. Oh my goodness, there's a crack, but it is normal. It is. I would guess that it's very rare to find a old home that has a perfectly intact foundation with absolutely no cracks at all, right?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, there's other measures people can take to mitigate damage and things like that. When you have a foundation that is below grade, simple things like making sure the grade slopes away from your house as opposed to towards your house, prevent collection of water around the edge of your home. And also things like, they recommend, I think building code stipulates that you need a minimum of 8 inches between grade and the top of your foundation wall. You see quite often with the older homes, wooden siding coming right down and it's practically touching the grass. That's just wicking moisture into the structure, and it's just not good at all. So, but we've got ways and means to fix these things. So.
Interesting. So, you mentioned injecting something in the cracks. This is all kind of new technology too, right? I mean, I think people often think about, well, let's go into the hardware store and, buy some of this, whatever, filler or something. Probably not a long-term fix, right?
Well, I mean, in quite a lot of cases, it works great. It just depends on, I've come across foundations that have been built on top of bedrock, and there was never a proper water stop placed between the foundation wall and on the bedrock. So it's a cold joint. It's an obvious place where water is going to manage to seep through. And occasionally you will patch using something like Zypex, which it's a great product. But if the water is not really a huge issue, then sure, go ahead, do that. Chase out your crack, clean it out, widen it a little, moisten it, and apply the Zypex. And in a lot of cases, that will certainly do the trick. If you've got something which is really problematic, a structure or even a suspended slab, we do a lot of work in the commercial sector as well. So say a slab where traffic's been driving on top of it and it's cracked extensively. Some of the cracks are maybe 30, 40 feet long. Mm-hmm. And water's coming in, and it's, in that case, we would definitely want to inject where there's a higher volume of water. We just want to seal that crack up altogether. Mm-hmm. And with the injection material, like I say, it's hydrophilic, and it really does chase after the water and follows it into every last little possible place that it can be. So.
Very interesting. Okay. Hey, before we stop for our break here, if people need to reach you at West Coast Waterproofing, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can get me at 250-415-3061 or shoot me an email at phil@westcoastwaterproofing.ltd.com.
Yeah, and of course, the website is great. I have had a chance to have a look at it before our phone call. Lots of information, for anyone who's curious to know and learn about the stuff that you guys do. Definitely an area. And I'm going to say that sometimes people just forget about the importance of their foundation, and it's almost like they leave it until it's too late, right?
Yeah. And like I say, they don't think when they're building a home, they don't want to spend another $7 or $8 before they even get out of the ground. They're like, well, I don't think that's going to happen to me, and inevitably it does.
Well, listen, hold that thought there, Phil. Like I said, we need to take a quick little break here. When we come back, we'll be continuing our conversation with Phil Aitken from West Coast Waterproofing. Back in just a moment. Thanks for coming back. You're listening to The Whole Home Show, and I'm Tony Joe. Our show comes to you every week with the support of our show partners: Denise Webster, mortgage broker with Dominion Lending Center's Modern Mortgage Group; JP Sellers, insurance advisor at Westland Insurance; the Sitka Law Group for your real estate, wills and estates, corporate and personal injury needs; and Silhouette Home Inspections with Pierre Beauvais. If you need help or direction in your real estate transaction, give any of the Whole Home Show team members a call. They would love to hear from you. And just as a reminder, if you are a podcast listener, you can listen to any of our past 200 shows on iTunes or Google Play. We've got so many great guests and almost every topic you can imagine relating to real estate. If there is something on your mind right now or a topic that you would like to hear about, chances are we've already covered it. But even if we haven't, reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. Just give us a call, 250-414-6540, or find us on CFAX1070.com. Look under shows. There you'll find us, The Whole Home Show, with me, Tony Joe. We're having a conversation about things around the house, not the least of which is your basement or foundation. We're having a conversation with Phil Aitken from West Coast Waterproofing. Again, Phil, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Hi.
Yes. Okay, so we talked about the basement and treatments that you can do. You, of course, do other things too, like commercial. You do strata, right?
Yep.
And you've got something else to tell us about a different application, right?
Yeah, we have. We've been actively promoting a product. It's a spray applied system. It's a coating, and it's basically it's called a polyurea. There's lots of different polyureas out there. Some of you may have pickup trucks with bed liners that have the spray and bed liner.
Oh yeah.
That product, which it feels extremely tough, extremely resilient, very robust. That's polyurea.
Oh wow.
The U.S. military uses it on their vehicles, but the products that they use for bed liners is slightly different than the stuff we were using. Excuse me. For commercial application, we're doing big podium decks where normally we would use, we would see here in BC anyway, a torch-on membrane being applied.
Yeah.
So yeah, a torch-on membrane, it comes in rolls. They're 3 feet wide. So every 3 feet essentially you have a joint. Wherever there's a joint, there's a weak point. When you transition from horizontal to vertical, that's also a weak point, because when you're bending that membrane like that, it's not good for the membrane. And you can only do so much in a day. With polyurea, we seamlessly transition from horizontal to vertical. We can do up to 5,000 square feet in a day if we just with our one rig. And like I say, it's seamless. So it's essentially one coating. We can cover large areas. It bonds fantastically to not only concrete but PVC, wood, metal. We've been looking at doing we've teamed up with a local architecture firm. They specialize in landscapes, and we're going to be doing some really nice looking water features as well. And the nice thing about this, in the past, like maybe landscape guys have been using EPDM rubber liners. They're extremely difficult to handle and maneuver. They're heavy. Try to get them into the position they want them in. Whereas we can simply lay down a filter fabric. You basically dig your hole the shape of the pond that you would like. We can lay in our filter fabric and spray right to the filter fabric, and then there's your membrane. And another beautiful thing about this system is it cures rapidly. You can traffic the system in about 45 seconds. I can drop my tools on it. I can walk on it. You can drive on it. The stuff is amazing. So
wow.
It's used widely in the oil field as well for secondary containment, fish tanks. There's no end of the uses for polyurea. So we're excited to be using it. I think we're the only guys on the island currently that are doing it. I only know of one other applicator in BC at the moment. And we're actively promoting it, like I said. To me, I'm originally from Scotland, and it's widely used in the UK. It's widely used in the States. It's widely used in Australia. Unfortunately, it's not that popular here yet, but I'm hoping to change all that. So,
okay. So now, how long does a coating like that last? I mean, obviously, it's going to depend on where it is in the application, right? Yeah. How long can someone expect? Is it something that needs to be reapplied every once in a while?
No, it's going to last you the life of the structure. And once you see the coating, and you'll see just how tough it is, you'll get it right away. We've been doing some bridge work as well. We did one for CN Rail just before Christmas in Burnaby. And the nice thing about the bridge stuff, traditionally they use hot rubber, which is essentially just a melted tar onto the roadway to give the waterproofing layer. But every time they want to resurface the new asphalt, they end up taking up the old hot rubber as well, and they have to re-waterproof time and time again. Whereas with the polyurea and the bridge deck system, we basically apply the coating and they can remove the asphalt right on top of the coating and then reapply. They don't need to re-waterproof over and over again. So it saves money as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. All these new technologies. And again, we had talked very early on about how construction processes have changed over the years. But of course, going back to the services that you guys do, I mean, in somebody's home that they're living in right now, again, no intention to sell. They just want to make sure that the foundation or the basement is waterproofed. That is something that you guys can come in and help them out with, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's other such things such as cavity membrane systems. So if you've got real water problems, and you've patched up one crack, typically what will happen, the water will just find another way in. It looks for another way in, and it will find one eventually. So you're going to either call me back to come and fix the crack, or you want to take a look at a different solution. So essentially a cavity membrane, you would basically line your basement with like a drainage mat, so a dimple board, and you would allow the water to come in, but we would channel the water and we would bring it to a drain in a sump chamber, and then it would be pumped away. Mm-hmm. So there's other ways of, we don't necessarily always have to stop the water. We can sometimes manage the water. So
Yeah, I'm guessing that would be a little more common. We see a lot of these older, like the older homes that, perhaps weren't really meant to be finished areas in the basement before, right? And,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
of course, over time, people have done that. But that,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, Phil, if people need to reach you or need to find you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm always on the phone. It's never far from me. It's 250-415-3061.
Great.
And the email, it's Phil at westcoastwaterproofing.ltd.com.
Yes. And of course, the website then is westcoastwaterproofingltd.com. And again, I'm looking at it right now. Lots of great stuff, great explanation of your services and everything. So important to be looking out for these things. But the other thing too is you were just talking about other applications like landscape things and all that. So so many things around the house, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice and fast. Like I say, we can do large areas in, very short periods of time, rather than wrestling with an EPDM liner for a couple of days. We can have the filter fabric laid and we can have your membrane spray applied within an hour or two, and then you're good to go. So,
it must be nice working in a climate like Victoria where it doesn't get snowy and cold and all that stuff. Probably gives you more work days in the year, right?
Yes, it does. But another nice thing about the polyurea, we can definitely apply it right down to minus 30 degrees. It's
what?
that. Yeah, as long as the surface preparation is key. We use a good primer, and we can go basically from minus 30 to plus 30. We can apply the product in a vast array of temperatures. So.
Well, I think it's safe to say that Victoria doesn't hit that temperature, so it's pretty okay. Right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Well, listen, Phil, thanks for your time. I appreciate the fact that you're right in the middle of calls right now on your phone in the truck. Again, it's Phil Aitken from West Coast Waterproofing Limited. If you have any questions about your basement, you want to talk to Phil, just give him a ring. Thanks for joining us, Phil.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Yeah, now we're going to take our